Welcome back, class. This is week 1, part 2, fundamentals of phlebotomy. We're going to be talking about the circulatory system. So I would encourage you all to go ahead and stop right here and watch the video called The Amazing Human Heart. It's going to give a good overview and picture of what goes on in the heart, because in this lecture, we are going to go really in depth about the heart, okay? And we'll get into more of that when you come back. All right, pretty cool, right? The heart is amazing, and there are actual studies going on today and have been published about how the heart is its own kind of brain system. Like the heart is its own brain, kind of. It does a lot more for our body and with our body than we realize. So, what you all need to know for this course is you need to be able to label the different parts and structures within the heart. You need to be able to understand and You need to be able to understand how the blood flows through the heart and through the body, that pathway that it takes. You need to also be able to not only see it and understand it like when you're looking at a diagram, but you also need to be able to read a question and visualize that flow of blood through the heart in your mind to answer the question. In your supplemental materials section, I do have worksheets that you can print off and practice with. And I also will be uploading videos that correspond to those worksheets where I'm working through them with you with the flow of blood and labeling the structures of the heart. And you can watch those videos and then practice on your own. In this lesson, we're also going to learn about pulmonary circulation, and then our next lesson will get into the actual components of blood and what blood is made of. Okay. So, an overview of the circulatory system. The circulatory system, its main function is to carry oxygen and food to cells of the body. Okay, you need to know that. That's important. Okay, it carries carbon dioxide and waste from the cells to the excretory organs. Okay, those are the organs that get rid of things. Okay, it aids in coagulation. It assists in defending the body against disease, and it aids in the regulation of body temperature. Okay, all of these things are important to remember about the function of the circulatory system. Okay, the circulatory system is made of 2 parts. Okay, we have 2 main divisions. We have the cardiovascular system, which is right here. That's our heart, blood vessels, and blood. That's important to know. And the lymphatic system. That's your lymph vessels and lymph. That has to do with your immune system. So it is important to know the 2 main components of your circulatory system. All right. So we look at these pictures on the left here, right here, this picture. This is your circulatory system. This is what it looks like in your body. And it's basically a roadmap. Like those vessels go to the tiniest particle of cells within your body, taking oxygen and picking up waste and taking it back to the lungs to be processed and heart. So then we have on this side here, this is just a back view here. And then over here, this is your lymphatic system. Again, it is a roadmap. It goes all the way through your body. You can see these little nodules here. Those are your lymph nodes, all those things right there. So if you think about a roadmap and think about a road, it does not matter what road you get on. Say here in Louisville, it doesn't matter what road you get on. You can take tiny roads to a little bit bigger road to 65, right? That's basically, if you look at how our body works, our red blood cells, they're going to be taking the groceries and delivering it through that roadmap and then picking up the waste, the garbage along the way. Okay. So let's talk about the heart. So the heart, you need to know that it is a 4-chambered hollow organ. This is important. The heart has 4 chambers. And we're going to get into that in just a second. You need to know that the heart is about the size of a man's clenched fist. You also need to know that it's surrounded by the pericardium. This is a thin, fluid-filled sac, and we'll look more at that structure. I have some good pictures for you so you can get a good idea of what that looks like. You do need to know the layers of the heart, okay? We have the epicardium, which is the thin outer layer, the myocardium, which is the middle muscle layer, and the endocardium, which is the thin inner layer. So remember in our last lesson, I said when you have a new word, let's break it down to its medical terminology so that not only you'll remember this word, if you maybe not remember the definition, you can break down the word and that can help you solve what the question is talking about. But if you know these pieces and see them show up in other words, it can help you figure out that word as well. So let's take epicardium. We have epi, which is going to be your outer layer. That means outer, okay? Cardi is heart. And then, well, we could really say cardium is the heart, okay? Then we have the myocardium. Myo is muscle, okay? Myo means muscle. So anytime you see myo in a word, sometimes you might see it MYE as well, it means muscle. And then cardium, myocardium, this is talking about the heart muscle, okay? Then we have our endocardium. This is inner, the inner layer, okay? It's inside, endo, okay? Cardium, the inside of the heart, okay? I hope that helps you all remember these words as well when you are working on your test. All right, here we go. So you can see right here, this is the epicardium, and they pulled it out. See, that's their hand. They're pulling this out. So it's that thin layer right over the muscle. And this is filled with what is called pericardial fluid. And I'll write that better here. This is an important term to know, the pericardial fluid, okay? Peri, outer, and then cardial, referring to the heart. I will give you the absolute proper term right here. Cardi is heart. And AL means referring to. Or pertaining to. So this is talking about pericardial fluid. It is the fluid in the outer layer of the heart. You go ahead and pause the video and you can write this down. Next, we have the myocardium. All right, we remember myo means muscle, cardium, heart. All right, the heart muscle. Okay, and then we have the endocardium right here. Okay, that's the thin inner layer. So I don't know if you guys have ever cooked chicken, but you know that membrane that is on the outside of the meat of the chicken, and then when you get to the bone, there's another thin membrane layer. That's exactly what we're looking at here, basically. Okay, if you want to think of it like that. And then this picture here at the bottom gives you another visual of what that looks like. You do not have to worry about the words like parietal or visceral. Those are not important right now. That's not, again, what you'll be tested on, okay? So there we go. Let's see here, pericardial fluid. All right. All right, let's talk about the chambers of the heart. Like I said, we have 4 chambers of the heart. It's very important to know. We have the right atria, or we have the right atrium and the left atrium. We call it atria in that instance because it's talking about both. Atria is the plural, singular is atrium. So we have a right and left atrium. We have a right and left ventricle. Okay? Those are our 4 chambers. Then we have 4 valves as well that are at the exits of each chamber. Okay? We have the atrioventricular valve, which breaks down to the right atrioventricular valve or tricuspid, and then we have the left atrioventricular valve or bicuspid, also known as the mitral. Okay, mitral. That word there for you. The mitral valve. So you will hear them, hear both of those terms. We then have the semilunar valves. Those are the pulmonary semilunar valve and the aortic semilunar valve. All right, the septa is the portion of the heart that separates the right and left side. So we have interatrial and intra for learning the structure of the heart and the flow of blood through the heart is to, here we go. So if we look here at the valves, we have our tricuspid, our bicuspid, aortic, and pulmonary. Okay, so remember that word atrioventricular? These 2 valves, the tricuspid and the bicuspid, are called atrioventricular valves because they are between the atria and the ventricles, okay, or the atrium and the ventricles, okay? You guys see that? That's important to understand that concept because not every test that you come across are going to call it the atrioventricular valve, or some just break, or the semilunar valve. They break them down, just they're smaller words. So we typically call them the tricuspid, the bicuspid. Another word for the bicuspid valve is mitral. That is important to know. You will see that in some areas. the aortic semilunar valve. Now, semilunar and pulmonary semilunar valve. So, semilunar, they call it the semilunar just because of its shape. Okay. I think that mentioned that in one of the videos in the beginning. So, yeah. And then here we can see our right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. And by the end of this course, you're going to be able to label all of this and understand how the blood flows through here. Okay. Ventricular. Now, this is not something that you need to label, but you need to understand the concept. Okay. So, like, this is what we call the septum here. Right here. This piece here, we call this the septum. And we have one that separates up here. It goes all the way up here, separates the atrium, and then we can see here separates the ventricles. Okay, you can just know this as septum, or yeah, septum. I believe is how it's most often described on all the tests and certifications. And then this we call the apex of the heart. And I will give you, again, in your supplemental material, and I will give a detailed going through and labeling together for practice the heart all at once. Because when you are learning, my best advice, learn your structure in the way that the blood flows through the heart, so that and just follow it through each structure. And you're learning two things at once. You're learning the blood flow through the heart and each part of the structure at the same time. So that's how I personally recommend you learn those two items together. And again, the video I'm going to do in your supplemental material, that will be you'll be able to see how to do that properly. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the blood flow through the heart really quick. So we have the blood flows in through from the head to the superior vena cava. And from the body in the inferior vena cava. Okay? So I think, have you guys noticed a color pattern on these pictures? We have the blue side of the heart and we have the red side of the heart, right? So the reason why these pictures show it like this is because the blood that flows into the right side of the heart is deoxygenated. Okay? So blood that enters the right side of the heart is deoxygenated. This is a very important term and concept to remember. This is going to help you tremendously when understanding how the heart works, okay? Deoxygenated. That means the blood that flows into the right side of the heart is carrying waste products to the lungs. Can anybody think off the top of your head what the waste product that is going into the right side might be? It has to do with our lungs. What do we breathe out? It's carbon dioxide. There's other things in there too, but that is one of the main ones, the main waste product that the blood is carrying. So our blood, again, I told you it travels to all the different cells of the body, right? And it's dropping off oxygenated cells, and we're going to get into how it does that in just a minute. And then it picks up the waste, the carbon dioxide, the things that need to be released. And carbon dioxide is released through the lungs. So that is one of the waste products that stays in the blood all the way through to the lungs, because the lungs get rid of it for us, okay? So deoxygenated, this is blood that is oxygen poor, okay? And I'm saying these terms in this way because this is how you will see it written. This is how you will see the question posed to you. It is not always going to say deoxygenated. It's going to say oxygen poor. That means it doesn't have oxygen, right? So again, if we look at the breakdown of our words, we could say D means none, right? No oxygen. Okay. So blood that enters the right side of the heart is deoxygenated. It is carrying waste products to the lung. It's oxygen poor, okay? And when we're looking at pictures, it's typically shown in blue. All right. So when the blood enters our vena cava, we have the superior and inferior vena cava. It enters into the right atrium, okay? And then from the right atrium, it goes through our tricuspid valve, which is an atrioventricular valve, okay? The tricuspid. It's coming into this right ventricle, okay? The blood's going to fill up here. And when that heart squeezes, it's going to go up through the pulmonary valve to the pulmonary artery. Now, the pulmonary artery is going to take the blood to the lungs, okay? Now, one thing that will help you also in your studies is to know that veins take blood to the heart, and arteries take blood away from the heart. Okay? So, see this artery is taking it away to the lungs, okay? So when this blood gets into the lungs, it drops off its carbon dioxide, and then it picks up, you guessed it, oxygen. So this oxygenated blood is going to be on its way to the body to drop off all the groceries to all the different parts that is needed, okay? So then once it has received this oxygen-rich blood, okay, it comes back into the heart. You see, veins is carrying blood to the heart. So from the lungs, it comes right back in here into the left atrium, where it's going to go through this valve, the mitral valve, bicuspid valve, okay, which is also an atrioventricular valve, into the left ventricle. From there, it's going to go through your aortic valve into this main artery, our main artery of the body, the aorta. I know we've all heard of the aorta, right? So the aorta is the hardest pumping artery we have, right? It's pumping out 6 liters of blood a minute. So that's like 2 2-liter Cokes, 3 2-liter Cokes, something like that. Yeah, 6 to 7 liters per minute. That's a lot of blood. That's a powerful machine, right? So the aorta sends this back out to all the parts of the body, okay? So this labeled picture here is not all the labeling that you need, okay? We will get into, I'll have some other diagrams for you that will get more into in depth into the labeling that you definitely need to know for your certification. Okay, so this is a picture just to show you the blood flow through the heart. This is not your labeling picture that you'll go off of. I just wanted to mention that. Okay, there's a couple of things I want to talk about with this picture about the structures. Okay, so you need to know what a valve does. Okay, the valve prevents blood from, once the blood flows through here, the valve closes and then the blood can't go back. Okay, go back up this way. If the blood were to go back, we got problems. Things are getting backed up. There's things happening. It's not good. Okay, so we don't want that to happen. And then that's where you have heard probably someone having heart murmurs, stuff like that. So when they have the heart murmur, that's where the valve stays open maybe a little bit longer and they hear that extra sound or that pause. That's one type. There are a couple different types, but we won't be going into all the different types of heart murmurs. Okay. One more thing before we move on from this slide. Um, the reason why we see the blood that enters the left side of the heart as red is because when oxygen has bound to that the iron that you need, that He element, that is the hemoglobin element that is needed to bind the oxygen to carry it through to the other cells of the body. It gives it that red color. It gives those red blood cells that red color. And so that's why when we say when blood enters the left side of the heart, it kind of looks red, right? But when blood entering the left side of the heart is oxygen rich and red in color. Okay, one part that we have to remember when we are working on these diagrams is this is not your right and left. Okay, when you are looking at the heart, when you are looking at the body, and we are discussing directional terms like right and left, when looking at the body, we are looking at the patient's right and left, not ours. So I'm writing with my right hand, but this is the left. Okay, so when I'm not going to say, oh, this is my right hand, this is the right side of the heart. No, it is the patient's right and left. That is so important to remember, and also so hard to remember sometimes when we're first getting started. Trust me, I still have to go back and sometimes I have to like turn around to like mimic the patient to see which side I'm talking about. So I get it. I'm a little like that. So don't be embarrassed if you have to do that. Just know that is the patient's right and left. Okay. All right. Right here, that structure, the aorta, see where these go right here? That goes out to we have parts that go out to the body and then parts that go out to the coronary circulation. So it's like the body has a system and then the heart has its own. All right, so let's take a second right now. You can go ahead and pause here, and I want you to go to the content list under week 1, and I want you to watch the video called The Circulatory System. It's a fun little song, and it can help you remember the flow of blood through the heart, the different structures. I don't know if I know sometimes when I'm trying to learn something, it helps to put it to a song or something like that. So that's what this is for. It's silly, it's fun, but enjoy it. Okay. All right, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that. It's helped me a lot, and yeah, it's fun here. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the heart itself. So the heart, I told you, its own. It has its own intelligence. It's like its own brain, right? So the heart, you need to know, gets its blood supply through coronary circulation. Okay, so coronary circulation, coronary refers to the heart. This is how the heart gets its blood supply. So the heart does not have to wait on the blood to travel through all of the body to get what it needs, okay? If you look, so when you hear of someone who it has like a blockage in an artery and a blockage in the heart, that is just dealing with those veins and arteries that just supply the heart with its nutrients. Okay, and it's so important because the if we think about, the heart has a really important job, so it's just really important to understand that it has its own system that functions to keep it going, maybe when other systems may not be working well, if that makes sense. Again, coronary circulation is the heart gets its blood supply. Um, that's how the heart gets its blood supply. So, two conditions that you need to know that have to do with the heart is ischemia. That's this first word here, ischemia. It is an inadequate supply of oxygen to tissue, often caused by partial obstruction of a coronary artery. So, that if our tissue cells are not getting that oxygenated blood with the nutrients, it dies. So if remember, arteries take that oxygenated blood to the different areas it needs to go. So a coronary artery and heart artery is going to take that oxygenated blood to the heart. And if it's blocked with fat, cholesterol, all that stuff, it's not going to make it, and the heart is going to start to die, right? Tissue of the heart, and the heart needs all of its muscles tissue to pump so hard. That would then lead to the next term, which we call a myocardial infarction. Okay, so remember, myo means what? Muscle. And then we have cardial, or cardi, is heart, and AL referring to. All right, so this is the medical term for heart attack. This is the medical term for a heart attack, is myocardial infarction. That is important to know, okay? This occurs when there has been, well, a heart attack can have many different reasons, but it is caused by it's when there's a complete obstruction and that heart tissue has been dying for a long time. Because what happens, right? People have a heart attack and then they find out that they have blockages and need all these things done after they've had heart pain, after they've been to the doctor because they thought they were having a heart attack or stroke or something, right? So that's why it can be dangerous, because those things, it can be a slow process of that tissue not getting the oxygen it needs. And then by the time it's found, it could be too late sometimes. So That's why our health is so important, okay? One thing I wanted to list here, because I remembered it. If you remember that arteries away from heart, and they carry oxygenated blood, always. Veins to the heart, and they carry deoxygenated blood. Okay? Those are simple ways to remember those two things, okay? All right. The cardiac cycle, that is what we call one complete contraction or systole. It's important to know. And relaxation or diastole of the heart. So one squeeze and release of the heart is a cardiac cycle, okay? You also need to know that the cardiac cycle lasts about 0.8 seconds, okay? So again, one complete contraction or systole and relaxation or diastole of the heart is the cardiac cycle, and it lasts about 0.8 seconds, okay? Now, our heart has an electrical system. We actually, all of our cells have electricity, and if you were to gather up all the electricity from all of our cells, we would be like a power station. Like there's like trillions of volts, I believe, within us if we gathered up all the energy from all of our cells, which is pretty freaking cool. Um, so the way the heart contracts is through this electrical conduction system. So we have specialized cells that their job is to coordinate that relaxation and contraction. So one of the most important things you need to know about the electrical conduction system is the SA node or sinoatrial node. It is known as the pacemaker of the heart. So you've heard of people needing a pacemaker. It's because their SA node is no longer firing or sending those electrical impulses like it's supposed to. So when it malfunctions, that pacemaker shocks the heart to do what it's supposed to do. Okay? Now I'm going to hold on. Here we go. So here is our SA node, okay? So the SA node starts the electrical impulse, and that electrical impulse basically comes down here, and we call this the AV node. You do not have to know this term necessarily. You do need to know the SA node, okay? Now, if we look, this sinoatrial, this is up here in our atrium, and this is located here right between the atrium and ventricle, okay? So the electrical impulse, a big one, fires down to the AV node where it then is regulated and the timing is right. That's what the AV node does. And it sends it down through here. This is called the bundle of His. And then it comes down here into the Purkinje fibers. Okay. Now, these Purkinje fibers, what they do, they are again specialized cells, and then they send that little electrical impulse all the way through. See how these Purkinje fibers are kind of located all through here? It's to send that electrical impulse through all the muscles. If you look, it is making sure that every single one of those muscle cells feel that little electrical impulse. If you've ever had, I don't know if you've ever had a TENS machine or something, where they do little electrical impulses into your muscles and it makes it jump, right? That's what this is doing basically in a nutshell. Okay. All right. So I want you to go ahead and stop right here and I want you to go watch the video titled The Electrical System of the Heart. That's going to give you a little bit deeper understanding and kind of see it in action. Okay, enjoy. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the video. All right. So to measure this electrical current, this how well that, because that electrical system is needed for the heart to do its job, right? The heart will not be doing its job if it doesn't have that electrical impulse to cause that contraction, right? So in order to monitor this, we have ECG, okay? Or you can also see it EKG, all right? This is a graph record of the heart's electrical activity during a cardiac cycle. You should know that definition, okay? So the next thing, you know that lub dub is what they call it, sound that happens is the first heart sound you hear is when the ventricles contract or squeeze and your valves close. And then the second heart sound, the dub, is when the ventricles relax and the semilunar valves close. Because it's like a symphony. Like all of those things happen at one time. It's not like the blood comes in. It's not like four different stages. It's like there's a contraction and all the blood moves and a relaxation and everything fills. And then it contracts and pushes it where it needs to go. Okay? All right. So we have our heart rate, which is the number of heartbeats per minute. Okay? You need to know that anything 70 to 100 is normal. Anything below 70 would be abnormal. Anything over 100, we need to kind of be looking at them to see what they're looking like, how they're breathing, how they're feeling. Okay? And we would also look at do they have pre-existing things, medications, those kind of things. Okay? All right, our pulse, that's how we measure our heart rate. Okay, so our pulse is the palpable rhythmic throbbing caused by the contraction and relaxation of the artery as the blood passes through. So when you are checking a pulse, you are feeling an artery. Okay, so when you feel that artery, what you're feeling is that blood passing through as your aorta contracts and relaxes, okay? So the next, you need to know what a pulse is. You need to know how to take a pulse. And we will practice that in lab. You need to know the definition of blood pressure. That is the force exerted by the blood on the walls of the vessel. So you're measuring, so if you're looking at that vessel like kind of elastic tube, you're seeing how much pressure is going through there as you're measuring, right? So what that is telling us, if they are losing blood, they're not going to have a high blood pressure, right? Or if there's some kind of disease or something going on, they're going to have a high blood pressure. And then extreme fluctuations of blood pressure can cause strokes and other conditions. So blood pressure is so important. All right. Here's a fun word, sphygmomanometer. This is the medical term or the technical, we'll call it technical term, for a blood pressure cuff. All right. So I'm not going to make you spell the word. I might give you I don't know, I'll give you some candy or I don't know. We do something if you can spell it. This word, again, you just need to be familiar with it. Nobody's really going to ask you to spell it. And if you were to go to your new job and be like, where is the sphygmomanometer? They're going to be like, What are you talking about? Okay. So you do need to know that the systolic pressure, or that top number of blood pressure, is when the arteries contract, and the diastolic number, that bottom number, is the relaxation of the ventricles. Okay. All right, we have pulmonary circulation. So now we're getting into, we talked about coronary circulation. We're going to talk about pulmonary circulation. This is where the blood is carried from the right ventricle of the heart to the lungs. So when that deoxygenated blood enters the right ventricle, it has started its pulmonary circulation. Really, when it enters the heart, it started pulmonary circulation, okay? But the right ventricle is what sends that deoxygenated blood to the lungs, okay? Then carbon dioxide is removed, oxygen's picked up, and then oxygenated blood returns to the left atrium of the heart, okay? So pulmonary circulation, you need to know, is right ventricle, lungs, waste removed, nutrients, oxygen, those things picked up. And finally, oxygenated blood returns to left atrium. You all need to know that. You need to know that those steps in order, okay? A lot of things in this chapter on the heart are going to be learning those things in order. There's not many things other than your venipuncture procedures and actual blood procedures that you really do have to know in order like that, okay? The heart information is one of them. All right, your systemic circulation. That is where oxygenated blood, and you need to know this, that's where your oxygenated blood is taken from the left ventricle to the body cells and then returns the deoxygenated blood and waste to the right atrium. Okay? All right. So here you can see the circuit of pulmonary circulation, okay? And then we can see down here, this is just, you guys don't have to label this or anything. It's just kind of giving you a visual of pulmonary circulation, okay? And then just a visual of what the structures look like and how it works, okay? So on this bottom here, you can just see how it leaves the right side of the heart to go get oxygenated and pick up all that good stuff, and then comes back into the left side of the heart, all right? This slide is another representation of pulmonary circulation and systemic circulation. What you really need to know here is that the pulmonary veins take oxygenated blood to the heart, and the pulmonary artery takes deoxygenated blood to the lungs. Okay, arteries take blood away from the heart, and veins take blood to the heart. Okay, and then in systemic circulation, you have where your Small veins and venules. Your vessels are all going to be bringing that deoxygenated blood to the heart. And then from the heart, the aorta is going to be taking oxygenated blood to the body. All right, and that does that through the smaller arteries and arterioles. And then we're going to talk more about where that exchange takes place in the capillaries. Okay. All right, so we have arteries. They carry oxygenated blood away from the tissues or away from the heart into the tissues, okay? Our arteries have thick walls so that they can withstand high pressure, and the aorta is your largest artery. These are important facts to know, okay? And then arterioles are the smallest branches of arteries that join to the capillaries. That is also important to know, okay? And then we have veins. They return deoxygenated blood from the tissues to the heart. They have thin walls and low pressure. Veins are what you will be doing phlebotomy on. All right. And blood is moved through the veins through the skeletal system. Okay. This is important to know. Okay. What happens is our muscles are always moving, right? And the veins do not have the pressure and the force behind them that the arteries do. So it is dependent on that muscle movement to push that blood back up towards the heart. The other difference between veins and arteries is that veins have valves that prevent backflow. Because there's not that driving force and pressure pushing the blood through the veins, or like it does the arteries, you need that valve so that the blood does not flow backwards, okay? And then we have venules. They are the smallest veins that join to the capillaries, okay? And then we have capillaries right here. This is also important. They're microscopic, one-cell thick vessels that connect the venules to the arterioles. So capillaries connect the venules and arterioles together. Capillaries are considered the bridge, and this is where the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide take place. CO2 is the um, abbreviation for carbon dioxide. It is its chemical elements, periodic table, stuff, okay? So all of these points are important to know, okay? All right, going to our next slide. This slide is very important to remember, okay, guys? So you all need to remember how blood flows through the vessels. So I can tell you, you will see this on exams, on possibly your certification, okay? You need to know the correct direction of flow. These arrows show the direction, okay? You see it ends with the heart and begins with the heart, okay? So it goes heart, from the heart, it goes to the arteries, then the arteriole. Remember, it comes here to the bridge, the capillary, where it meets the venule, the vein, and the vein takes the blood right back to the heart, okay? You see here, this is where the exchange takes place, okay? Right here, where these structures meet, these vessels meet, okay? This is very important slide to remember, okay? All right. Now, you do not have to know or label this slide, okay? I just want you guys to see the structure and see what it looks like, because often if we can see it visually, it helps us remember a little bit better. I do want you to pay attention here, just taking a look of the capillaries here. See how talking about these little pores? This is where the exchange takes place, and the nutrients and things are able to penetrate through these pores in the capillary. And fenestrated means there's a hole in it. Okay. All right. There's different layers to the blood vessel structure, and you can see that in detail on the previous slide. All you need to know is the definitions, okay? You need to know that the tunica adventitia is the outer connective tissue. The tunica media is the middle smooth muscle layer with elastic fibers. And the tunica intima is the inner single layer, okay? So a good way to remember this is the outer adventures adventitia, adventures, media, middle, right? And then intima, inner. And then it all has tunica in front. Just a little tip that may help you remember those. And then right here, the lumen. You need to know this definition, okay? The lumen. Lumen just means internal space, okay? In this instance, this is saying that the blood vessel has an internal space or lumen through which the blood flows, okay? And I'm saying it this way because there's another part of phlebotomy that we're going to learn in the next couple weeks, and it also has a lumen, but it is not part of the body. So just remember, lumen means internal space, and in this instance, it's saying our blood vessel has a lumen, okay? And then our valves are located in veins only, okay? It is not located in the arteries. All right, that's just another picture so you can kind of get an idea of the structures, okay? And here we are. This is just, I love this picture. It just shows the branching and the vessels, and it's pretty awesome to me. So if you look right here, right, all of these right here, like on the surface here, all of those are capillaries, right? The capillaries reach down to every tiny little tissue doing its job of delivering oxygen, picking up waste, okay? This is important because when we do capillary puncture, what you're doing is making an incision right here, and you're cutting thousands and hundreds of tiny blood vessels, and that's where we get the blood flow from. So I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and I will talk to you soon.